So the time has come. I know I wanted to space these videos out a little bit more, but I couldn't wait until next week to talk about this episode. The ending is kind of bittersweet, but it's just as impactful as a regular TV show finale. For me at least. Cool little references, witty banter, and just moments that are super emotional. Let's get into my spoiler-filled thoughts and opinions on episode 6 of Rebel Robin, Surviving Hawkins. The episode starts out with Mr. Hauser on the phone. It's the same person that's been harassing him the past few episodes. This time, the person on the phone who's bothering him says they know about the car. I mean, could that be referencing when Mr. Hauser gave Robin a ride home a few weeks ago? Or could they be referencing the moment from last episode where he got into his date's car in a sketchy alley? Guess we'll find out. Timeline-wise, this episode takes place the last week of school before winter break. So I'm guessing that would place it a few days before the Christmas celebration montage at the end of Stranger Things Season 1. Just like most episodes, Robin strolls into Mr. Hauser's classroom. He literally just hung up with the mysterious person on the phone, so he's aggravated as hell. Right away, Robin can detect there's something just off about her teacher. She can hear it in his voice. Mr. Hauser's just so stressed that he can't wait for winter break. It's weird, right? Coming from a teacher who actually loves to teach. So over winter break, he's escaping, and Robin's gonna be working as much as she possibly can to prevent her mind from wandering and being alone with her thoughts. And she's gotta still save up for that trip to Europe, you know? She hasn't even told her parents yet. Also, it helps that her parents' friends are cool as shit. By that I mean these people mingling at the party have great stories to tell, and they're adventurous. They are everything Robin aspires to be when she leaves Hawkins finally. So maybe they can help convince her parents too? So as our two main characters continue to chat, Mr. Hauser asks Robin if she told anyone about the car ride home a few weeks ago. Robin starts explaining herself, and then in mid-sentence she's like, "Oh my god, it's Dash. Dash is the one harassing you on the phone." He's sort of thrown off at first, but eventually seems calm and relieved even. Even though Dash sees Robin and Mr. Hauser's friendship as inappropriate, Mr. Hauser would rather him think that than know the truth about his sexuality. One last episode means one last book comparison, right? The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. Another book I haven't read. This one centers around a small town doing a random drawing, and whoever draws the slip gets stoned and kicked out. With Mr. Hauser moving around a lot, I'm assuming because of who he is, he always feels like people are looking for someone like him in small towns to bully and harass. At this point, all my suspicions are revealed. Despite him thinking Robin already knew, he reveals to her that he's gay. Let's face it though, I don't blame her for not picking up on the hints. It's 1983. How many gay people back then do you know were out in the open? At this point, Robin's not mad. She's not overjoyed though either. The tone of her voice suggests that she just got the most heavy bit of information to process. Like something that's going to change her life. We finally find out what Barb was talking about to Mr. Hauser a few episodes prior. She knew he was gay too, but didn't say anything to anyone else. So maybe there is a little justice for Barb, huh? Essentially, Barb didn't tell anyone about Mr. Hauser's sexuality. If she did, you wouldn't get Robin learning how to be herself from her teacher. She would lack the confidence then to tell Steve who she really is, ergo, Steve wouldn't befriend Robin and no amazing bond would be formed. So yeah, shout out to Barb, who through an odd chain of events saved Hawkins from the Russians. As Robin's processing all this information, she stops and looks at her teacher and she's like, "What's the punishment for pulling the fire alarm?" And Mr. Hauser's just like, "What? 2-day suspension, why?" And then you hear the fire alarm go off. Robin's just like, "Hey, I definitely saw Dash do that. He's a free period right now, so it had to be him, right?" Yo, she set his ass up. This is why I love her character. To be fair, there's not really too many characters from Stranger Things that I dislike. Maybe like Keith or Erica? The podcast then skips a few minutes later ahead to when everyone walked outside for the drill. He approaches Dash and he's just like, "I have an eyewitness that places you at the scene of the crime." Mr. Hauser's just like, "I'd hate for your perfect attendance record to be tarnished," and right away Dash denies it, but once the teacher mentions the calls he's been getting from him, yo, Dash just crumbles like a little bitch. Essentially, he's just like, okay, I'll stop the calls, just not my perfect record, please. Afterwards, Dash tries to confront Robin about what just happened. He knows she's the one responsible. She definitely has the upper hand now. Blackmailing someone to survive Hawkins? It works. Before going back into school, Steve Harrington bumps into Mr. Hauser. He's just like, "Oh, sorry," and just walks off. From there, the conversation subject shifts to the babysitter we all know and love. Robin's like, "I don't know, there's some weird cosmic shift about him," referring to Steve's redemption arc at the end of season 1. She saw him cleaning the graffiti off of the Hawk Theater marquee that him and his friends put up there. In her head, she's like, who are you and what have you done with Steve Harrington? Another fun fact, Steve Harrington originally wasn't supposed to save John and Nancy from the Demogorgon at the end of season 1. That was originally written to be Lonnie Byers' point of redemption. Glad they didn't go that route though, because Steve's character arc across all 3 seasons is probably my favorite. As she keeps questioning Steve's change of heart, Mr. Hauser's just like, everyone has layers, Robin. She definitely keeps that in mind. Then they go on to talk about who Robin wants to take on the trip to Europe. Mr. Hauser suggests Milton. She's just like, yeah, I'd like to be friends with Milton, metaphorically speaking, when the Hawkins monster calms down. But I was thinking Tammy Thompson. She just goes on and on about her. She's smart, witty, she smells like strawberries, and at this point, Mr. Hauser's just sitting there with a grin on his face. I feel like at this point he knows too that Robin doesn't want to hide the fact that she's a lesbian. He also conveys a sense of worry too, because realistically, who wants to have that fear of constantly looking over your shoulder just because of who you are? So Mr. Hauser reassures Robin that he has a happy life regardless of what he has to hide. Because there's still points in his personal life where he doesn't have to wear his armor, so to speak. And those little moments are what makes all the hiding worth it to him. He's just an overall amazing teacher. We've already established that, but I'm just so glad Robin has someone like him in her life. Even though I can't fully relate to these two because I'm not gay or bisexual, when they opened up to each other, it was just a super sweet moment. I can only imagine how either one of them were feeling. Before the episode's end, Mr. Hauser gives Robin 2 Christmas presents. Books. One of them is completely in Russian. That'll definitely come in handy. Maybe she thinks of Mr. Hauser when Dustin and Steve ask her to help translate in season 3. He's always giving her that extra nudge, you know? Robin has a super emotional end to her conversation with her teacher, and thanks him for teaching her how to survive, so to speak. So I'm really happy Mr. Hauser doesn't get fired. And curious actually if maybe Will Byers will get him as a teacher. I know there's been a few moments that he's been accused of being queer in the show. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Who knows? So that's it, the end of our 6-episode journey. I feel like this podcast had a little bit of everything. Suspense, mystery, mental health issues, and how to deal with them. Also, people who are in the questioning stage of their lives, sexuality-wise. I just feel like so many people can benefit from listening to this little audio drama. And after listening to this, I think it's just really good to get a grounded story, you know? With no Russian spies, monsters, just something on a personal level we can all relate to. I'd recommend this entire series to all age groups. Well, I mean, maybe not little kids, but you know what I mean. This is like my 3rd podcast I've listened to. I'm starting to get into them more and more. I really hope other properties take a page out of the Stranger Things book and do up more of these scripted podcasts. And speaking of books, I finally picked up a shitload of the Stranger Things graphic novels. I mean, if you want to read about what happened to Troy, you know, the bully from the 1st season of Stranger Things, or if you want to know about Will Byers' journey into the Upside Down in season 1 from his perspective, I mean, you guys have to pick these up. You'll just have a great time immersing yourself in these expanded story tie-ins. Because now that this podcast is over, I'm happy I have more stuff to tide me over. Is there any other scripted podcasts out there that supplement existing properties? Let me know in the comments below. Once again, thanks for stopping by.